Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another usual Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Nora Kyle, along with...
The other one of your hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
So you turned the transcript on. Great.
Yep, somebody just pinged me to do that.
Smart.
Which is very important because that way, even though we talk funny, people can read what we're all saying here.
All right, so spiel first, right?
Yes.
Spiel. All right.
All right. Am I doing the spiel or are you doing the spiel?
Spiel. I'll do it.
You do it.
All right, so, our usual spiel. Thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us here live, in which case you get to enjoy all the benefits of that, meaning you get to interact with us directly, ask questions, add your input as we go, all of those lovely things that we feel really enrich these conversations. But if you're joining us on the replay, probably on YouTube, then you get to join us by participating in the comments if you like. Or if you want to just do the like and subscribe thing, that is also beneficial to us too. Either way, we're happy you're around. We're so excited that you're here and able to join us. And as you can see, our subscriber number is gradually ticking up to reach that 1,000 subscriber mark that we've been so enthusiastic about reaching. Because yes, we're so close, getting so close, because this may allow us to join the YouTube Partner Program, which in turn will allow us to have more control over the advertisements that are shared on our videos. Preferably, we would like to have none, and if that's possible, that is what we plan to do.
Yeah, and if it's not possible that we can demonetize all of our videos, we will at least have a list of people who are not allowed to advertise with us.
Which is very important to us, given that we want to act upon our values and basically not promote anything that we find to be, acting in contrast to those values. We are not
or
here
in conflict even.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Yes, Levita says 944 subscribers. Yes.
Yeah.
We get excited to see that number tick up a little bit more. And yeah,
I remember back when it was 50 subscribers, and we thought that was a lot.
But it was a lot for a channel just starting out. And slowly but surely, we have been growing, and it's exciting to see that happen. Thank you so much for being part of that.
We may lose a bunch of subscribers tonight. That's what happened last week.
Yes, it's funny that it happens that way.
Yeah, well, a lot of people took offense to last week's topic.
Why was that?
Because we tipped a couple of sacred cows. We did not give absolute deference to people that some people thought should have absolute deference. We even criticized, just slightly, not even criticized, but noticed that some of, say, Gurdjieff's students maybe had their heads up their asses. I mean, did not know everything that they thought that they knew.
Asking questions, having contradictory opinions.
But the fun thing is that this talk is liable to be even more controversial.
All right, so we are talking tonight. What is it? The title of our talk is One Size Fits None. And what is the subtitle on that?
The subtitle is, wait for it, The Fact of the Individual.
Yes, so One Size Fits None, The Fact of the Individual. So let's dive into that.
All right. Shall I start, or would you like to start?
Yes, please. You should start. I definitely have a lot to say on this, but...
Okay. All right, so in these days, and for quite some time before these days, there has been this idea of systems. Ouspensky used to talk about systems all the time. He wanted systems. And this was in my opinion, the main cause of his breaking with Gurdjieff is that Gurdjieff wouldn't give him a system. So he talked about systems on his own, the system, the methodology. And there have been a bunch of Sufis who have done the same thing, so we can't just pick on the Gurdjieffians. The idea that everybody gets together and you all do the exact same practice in the exact same way and you're all going to get the exact same result. And the unfortunate case is that it doesn't work that way. There are 944 people who will listen to this video, probably more than that, who haven't subscribed to us for some reason, best known only to themselves. But no two of them need exactly the same thing. There is no one size fits all. And what you get is when your method is empty, you get this one size fits all idea. You get the process, right? There are all of these new age hucksters out there right now offering this process and that process, and everybody comes and they pay thousands of dollars to go through this process, which is supposed to fix them. And it doesn't.
But it's an easier sell.
It's a way easier sell. Do the process and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's very.
And it also puts the person in the passive position. So,
yeah.
The real work says that there is no one process. There is no system. There are teachers who have learned enough that they can craft what the student needs to their needs, which is why in the real Sufi schools that I've been to, you will see one person that has a practice and another person who has a practice diametrically opposed to the first person's practice, totally different, going in opposite directions. And the thing is that it is absolutely necessary for that to be the case, because those two people are completely different, unique human beings. And their actual needs must be addressed, not some archetypal, platonic perfection of humanity that every single process will work on. Does that make sense, or am I getting too weird and obscure?
Oh, yeah.
And some processes will not only not work for somebody, but will be hurtful. For instance, for myself, I can speak for me. All of the inner child work that people do, I am completely repulsed and repelled by. My sense is that the only thing my inner child ever needed to do was grow up and become an inner adult. And the idea of holding some inner child trapped in my consciousness forever is anathema to me. So, inner child work will not do it for me. It might be perfect for some other person, I don't know. But I am not that person. And so that cannot be one size fits all. And if you assume it is, you make one of the fundamental mistakes of teaching. Noor, what do you think? She's sitting there with her mouth hanging open going, oh my God, what is he saying?
Well, I mean, I know I I came to this talk from the perspective of someone who views this as a very, the field of like, you know, transformation, spirituality, awakening stuff as someone who sees a lot of like consumerism, like you're putting a product out there that you want people to spend money on and purchase and to buy into as consumers in a pretty passive way. And I feel like there is something about being a teacher rather than a producer of a product that requires you to do something that is a bit more individualized, to make sure that you're treating people as subjects rather than as consuming objects.
Or as human capital.
Oh, God. Human capital. Yes. Yes. Yep.
So, and think about it. Here you have people like Tony Robbins. I'm going to pick on him for a little bit. He won't mind. He's got all the money in the world and we don't have nothing, so he can sit back and enjoy himself and we can pick on him. He does these seminars that cost thousands of dollars to go through and promise wonderful transformations. But if his seminars actually worked, there would be 100 times the billionaires in the world that there actually are. People do not produce what he claims by and large. And I know a lot of the people who spent thousands of dollars at his seminars, hoping to get whatever it is that would make them great. And they didn't do it. He did not deliver. Now, he'll probably tell you that, yeah, I gave them the right stuff and they just didn't use it in the right way or whatever. I don't care. He did not deliver the goods.
Yeah, the like fallback saying is usually, well, I gave them the tools and they didn't use them.
Yeah. One of the most delightful things I have ever encountered was in Jed McKenna's first book. For those of you who don't know Jed McKenna, he's an enlightened dude. He doesn't actually exist. There is no Jed McKenna. That's a pen name of somebody else who is writing, who does not want to be known, has never wanted to be known, and probably never will be known. And that's one of the fun things about it, because he wrote his book and it became wildly popular, and he could have had 1 million followers that year. And he never popped up and said, "Hi, I'm Jed, come follow me," which says something very cool about him. But in his, I think it was the second chapter, he's talking to a guy about teachers, and he said that teachers should be judged like anybody else. It's like, if you're teaching enlightenment, how many people have you enlightened? How many enlightened beings do you produce every year? And you guys have heard me talk about this as well from my own perspective, but that's a bottom line. If somebody teaches enlightenment, they have to demonstrate that they can deliver what it is that they're offering. And things that are processes that everybody goes through and does the same thing do not produce this. What processes do is produce belief systems.
Because it becomes like dogma.
Yeah, it becomes dogma, and you've paid all that money and it has to be right. Therefore, you will act in a way that makes it as if it were right, without there ever being the essential change to yourself that needs to happen for you to move to the next level of your existence. Which is why you find people in some so-called schools that are reprocessing their traumas, for instance, over and over and over again. And when they get through all of their traumas, they find more traumas. If they can't find more traumas, they will create traumas. And this is not the work. This is not to say that all people out there who are doing work on trauma are full of shit, because I personally know a few who are doing this kind of work in a real way, where the people actually get healed and then moved on, as opposed to rehashing it over and over again. But they don't do systems. Is this making sense so far? Anybody upset yet? Show of hands.
Any questions yet? Yeah.
You have a carefully selected audience who like the kind of thing you're saying.
This is true, though it's not carefully selected. This sort of randomly fell together because everybody else just doesn't show up.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, people can self-select themselves out or in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not our doing.
That's true, but you can also be surprised by something you hear. And,
Oh, yeah.
a teacher can step on that third rail, with a student, and then it's like, what the what? So.
Yeah.
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 Here's the difference between people who show up here and people who show up at these places. We were watching this the other night. A so-called teacher says to the group of people that they're talking to, how many people here find their life unbearable? Or something along those lines. And virtually everybody in the audience of at least a couple of hundred people raised their hand.
Wow.
If I said that to any of the group of people that we work with, I would expect nobody to raise their hand. Not a single one of you.
I mean,
Yeah.
None of you, I don't think, but
Not anybody that we work with, not even the ones that are having difficulty. They're still better balanced than that and still find some joy in their lives.
Yeah, there's a big difference between going through a rough patch and life is unbearable.
Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's something
So-
I'm trying to, sorry.
No, please go ahead,
for it,
Nancy.
What's up?
Oh, there's something I'm trying to put a finger on about how these low quality, quote unquote, teachers get people excited by, I don't know, a fantasy of improvement or something. And that's what's driving it.
Because that is so much easier than doing the real work.
And then the failure is on the shoulders of the participant, the consumer, rather than on the teacher.
Yeah, and
really
this is
dangerous
nothing
teacher.
new. Yeah.
Yeah, and really dangerous teachers, what they do is they take truth and they mixed it in with the nonsense.
Right.
Oh, yes.
So
Yes.
it's hard. And if you don't know, if you're new to it and you don't know, because I got caught up in some of that too. Everybody does at some point. The truth, you have to be able to separate the truth from the fiction. And if you can't, because stuff is contextual.
Yep. And you have to love the truth more than you love the fiction, which is hard because truth is not fun. Truth is just there. Fantasy is fun. And I mean, some of us grew up with this. Who remembers Reverend Ike? Anybody remember? At least one person. Do you want pie in the sky by and by when you die? Right? That was his rap.
If your preacher is rapping, he might be a fraud.
He might be. But that guy made a lot of money.
And that's the measure of success, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That was his measure of success. He was out there with his gold throne and all of this kind of stuff, showing everybody that God really liked him that much. And God wants you to give me your money.
Now that's a spiel.
Yeah. But
It's a lot of
he
work
was
to say that
he's
with a
one
straight
of
face.
What's that, Nancy?
It's a lot of work to say things like that with a straight face.
you just have to have the right motivation.
Right.
Nancy, if you say that with a straight face, you will have $1 million in your bank account by tomorrow morning. I bet you could do it.
I'd have to work up
God
to it.
wants you. God wants you to give me your money.
Yeah, see? You
He's
almost
like,
got it.
it's coming, it's coming.
Okay, so let's get back to the point of this.
Yeah, let me ask you a question then.
Sure,
See if I
Yes,
can bring us
please.
back on track. So if a system or a process results in a belief, it's like a belief system, then what is a set of principles based on?
That is a really good question.
Thanks,
And
Jonathan.
I'm really glad that you asked that, because this is an important little road for us to go down. And principles are based on observation and experimentation. Principles tend to be scientific. Principles tend to be sparse. You can have 10,000 techniques, but you will only have 10 principles that those techniques are based in. And principles are demonstrably accurate. There are objective tests for principles. For instance, there is a principle that says, what I tell you 3 times is true. Are you all familiar with that one? Yeah.
I'm thinking that when you say something 3 times, I'm supposed to believe it is true.
Yeah, does anybody know where that particular phrase came from?
Lewis Carroll, although I don't quite
Yes, absolutely. Nancy gets the prize for the day. This is why when I need to know something about a book, she's the first person I message. Because I was actually expecting nobody to get that except for Nancy.
Yeah, I don't have the context, but I tell you once, I tell you twice, what I tell you 3 times is true.
Yeah, it was Alice talking to the
Yeah,
caterpillar.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. That sounds like Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, it was definitely Alice talking to the caterpillar. And, it's called that from, the book. But here's how the principle works. If I can tell you 3 things that you can objectively verify right now, and then I tell you something immediately after that you cannot objectively verify, you will tend to believe that 4th thing and act upon it. Every hypnotist knows this. So, as you listen to the sound of my voice, and you might be able to hear some other sounds around you, and perhaps you'll notice the quality of light in the room and the temperature of the air on your skin, you will begin to notice that your eyes want to blink. And yes, you can resist the blink, and yet you know they want to blink. That's an example of how that works in real time. I know you can hear the sound of my voice. I know there's light of some sort in your room. I know that you have a temperature around you, and that you can independently verify all of these things. And I also know that you will eventually blink your eyes no matter what. So I add that in. And if I kept talking, most of you, if not all of you, would be invited to go into a trance. And you might enjoy a trance, you never know. Don't worry, I'm not putting you in. I only put people in trances when they pay me lots and lots of money anymore. So y'all are safe.
Ouch.
So do you see though how that's a principle. The principle of your mind will tend to follow suggestions after you have verified the truth of what the person says. Now, how do we see this in the real world? Politics. America is messed up. America is falling apart. You know it's falling apart because there's these people over there and they're doing horrible things. And over here, there is this business, these businesses, and they're taking advantage of you. And so, the only thing that you can do to save yourself is vote for me and put me in office and I'll fix everything for you. Only I can fix it. Where have you heard that pattern? So, those are examples of principles. And there are a few principles that you have to go by. And one of the most fundamental principles that people like Nora and I have to keep in mind is that everybody needs an individual program of guidance suitable only to them and to no other person on the planet. If they want to actually complete themselves. Ain't none of you can use the program that I used. Ain't none of you can use the program that Noor used. You have to have your own. There will be some things that are similar, but you cannot get this out of a Cracker Jack box. Cracker Jack enlightenment. That's what we're going to call it from now on. There is no Cracker Jack enlightenment.
I mean, here's the thing. It's very tempting to take what we ourselves have used or what we see someone else having used with success, because we think that there will be some accountability there in that we can say, well, it worked for them and they did this, this, and this, so I'm going to do that, that, and that in the same order, in the same way, because if it worked for them, maybe I can... What's that word? Where you do a science experiment and you reproduce it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we think that we're going to find success through that route, forgetting that we are all individual, that we have our different points of reference that we've come from, that we're going towards. And we have to take those into account. I mean, those are, if we want to return to the scientific language, those are variables that will impact the outcome of the experiment. And there are so many variables involved that we cannot reproduce the experiment exactly as someone else did.
Yeah, unless you became that other person, which
And
you're not gonna.
That's not what we're trying to do. Yeah. That is not what waking up is.
Yeah, this was first driven home to me when I was studying under my teacher. And every now and again, somebody would come to him and want to take bayat, want to become initiated into our order. And me being his, some people would have said I was his right-hand man. I like to think of myself as I was his flunky. So as his flunky, it would be my duty to talk with this person and then come to him and say, Joe Schmo here would like to take bayat with you, Sheikh. And Sheikh would go inside a little bit and say, either yes or no. He's not my student. And he was always very clear on that. He would only take the people who belonged to him, because he knew that the people who didn't belong to him could not benefit in the same way from the way he taught. And sometimes he would recommend some other teacher, and sometimes he would say to them, you know, I'm not your teacher. You are welcome to come here and sit with us anytime you like. You can make this your home away from home until you find who your teacher really is. And that is a practical example of knowing that one size cannot fit all. Yeah. For one thing, if you were one of my teacher's student, you were going to be pretty damn ornery. He didn't have the nice, demure, really genteel, very spiritual, wear white robes kind of students. He had the, you know, I like to say our classic Sufi robes were black leather motorcycle jackets with proper little fezzes because he had a bunch of rowdy people around him.
He's rough around, he is rough around the edges himself.
Yes, and yeah. Anyway, we digress on that, and I want to get back to the point.
Yeah. So one thing I want to add is I think this is another thing that came to mind as we were preparing for this talk, is that I think people find safety in going with a crowd, right? And so again, talking about accountability and like evidence, quote unquote, people appreciate being part of a collective where everybody's doing the same thing and they can work on it together in real time. And that's part of why events like what Tony Robbins does are so exciting, because it feels like a communal thing. And there's certainly a draw in that, and there are benefits in working together, which is why even in our tradition, we do discuss working side by side in community. But we are not all doing the same things.
Yeah.
We are not getting lost in this sense of, trying to get through a workbook, that kind of thing. Everybody's just going down the checklist and making sure they did all the assignments. No, that is not the path to becoming
not
a
our
full
path.
adult. It works, yes. It's certainly not our path. That is for certain, yeah.
No, but there are paths that are like that. And they will take you to the place that those kind of paths take
Yeah.
you. The
Yeah.
classic example of that is Scientology. Scientology delivers exact tech, as they call it, to every single student in exactly the way. And they have lines of defense to make sure that nobody ad-libs at all. You are not allowed to ad-lib any of their tech. And that's an example of that kind of path. So you go in and they actually call them rundowns, where you run through a checklist of all of these things, and they expect the exact same result with every person. Whether or not they get it, I can't say. But that's an example of that kind of path. Our kind of path is exactly the opposite of that. No two people get the same tech. There are a few little exceptions. Everybody learns certain breathing practices, which are pretty close to identical, though after you've learned them, you get others that are specifically tailored to you. But they're, the fundamental breath everybody learns.
Everybody has to learn some fundamental skills that are shared.
Yeah.
There
Yep.
is that.
Yeah. But the important work is individual, one-on-one, or sometimes two-on-one if Nora's feeling really like surly and everything.
Surly, good word. Jonathan, I see you unmuted.
Oh, yes,
Did you have a thought?
thank you. Yeah, in the preamble to this talk, you gave a quote. Individuality is only possible if it unfolds from wholeness. And I
Yes.
got to thinking on that there's a principle behind that quote. And what came to mind was the greater creates the lesser, not the lesser creates the greater. It makes me think that an adult can produce a great work of art. A child cannot. a child can in time, if with
With
years
the
of
proper
study
training,
or
yeah.
life experience, they become whole, and then they can unfold and maybe produce a work of individual brilliance.
Yeah, and you've heard both Nora and I say more than once, children cannot teach children to become adults. And this is the fundamental problem that you get into with all of the groups and processes and seminars and that sort of thing out there.
Yeah.
We here in the work, and I'm using the collective we, which refers to myself and Nora, but to a lot of other people who are in the work as well, are not allowed to teach until we know. I studied with my last teacher for 12 years before he would even let me talk to people. And that's the thing. If you want to guide somebody through the work, you have to have gone the path yourself. Gurdjieff used to say this as well. You must learn from it. With him, it was always a man who knows. I say it's actually nicer to learn through a woman who knows, because they usually know more than us mere males. But you have to learn from a human being who knows the path.
I mean, that is why I often prefer, to think of what we do as waypointing.
Yeah.
It's guidance. We're not so much telling you what to do in the sense of, top down authoritarian, here's what you're going to do and here's how you're going to do it exactly like this. Because again, that gets into this sense of a passive consumer. You have to be an active participant in this. So someone who points the way is giving you the guidance to go your own way, essentially.
Yeah. And in order to do that, that person has to have traveled that path before and be able to demonstrate that they know what it is they're talking about. And they have to be accountable. This is a big deal. Every teacher, every real teacher of the work is accountable to somebody.
And conformity cannot be a stand-in for accountability.
No. So, who are real teachers accountable to? One, they're accountable to their teacher. They're accountable to other people within the work. So, I'm accountable to Noor. Noor is accountable to me.
Certainly.
But even more importantly, we are accountable to our students. And this is important because the people who do these processes do not allow themselves to be held accountable. So, for instance, Cherie comes to me with a problem, and I say, oh, here's the path, follow this path down there, and it will get you to the solution to your problem. And she comes back next week and says, I followed that path, and instead of finding the solution, I found this huge mass of brambles that I fell in, and I'm still picking out the thorns. What the hell did you do? Either I have to listen to her and regard what she says as true, or I have to gaslight her in some way. And to listen to her requires that you have your ego in check. So Noor and I say that we are accountable to every single one of our students. And that is one of the differences between people who actually do the work and people who don't. That's one of the one-size-fits-none things. Does that make sense? Everybody's so quiet.
Bree's going to chime in. Yeah.
Just going to say that blind adoration of your teacher doesn't work.
No.
I'm sorry, I do love you, but the blind bit, that's, I've seen it in my life with my parents, the blind devotion to something, to not question and to suffer for that for a very long time, and then to get excommunicated. I think people want to belong, really want to belong, and the fear of heaven and hell, that can really confound people into being attracted to certain things just to feel safe, just to feel like they're okay. And damnation, if they step out of line, just cripples them from actually making a full awareness decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Like that.
what's that?
I don't want to be like that. And that's, in the quest of associating with different people and coming across this group, is that Mushtaq can make suggestions to me, and sometimes I follow it, and sometimes life gets in the way and I follow it later. But there's also time to think about my decision. I have license to make my decision if it's this way or this way. So that's actually really important to me, that you're not dictated to in a way that you think, oh, if I don't follow this, then I'm out. I'm kicked out. I'm sure, of course, you may ask people not to become going to be disruptive, and you can challenge. That's what I like about this too, that I don't understand why. I can still ask you why and try and find understanding. But we're not allowed to go and sleep here.
No. And hero worship is not allowed.
No.
I mean, I would love to have some place where people would worship me as a hero. That would be great, but it can't be this.
Like someone to carry my, my palanquin or whatever that word is. I want people to just like treat me nice. That'd be great. But I mean, realistically,
if you got that going, you don't have this going. That's the problem.
Yeah. And I relate to what you're saying, Shuri, in that I spent 10 years looking for a teacher that I was not asked to worship and obey. Every time I came up against that, I was like, I think I'm going to keep myself at arm's distance because I don't think this is my home. And even when that wasn't asked of me, when I had peers who seemed to worship the teacher, I also felt like I don't think I can fully invest myself in this because it wasn't challenged to the degree that would have made me feel comfortable. And that was a problem for me.
Yeah. Fortunately, we can honestly say that nobody here worships the teachers.
No.
Yeah. Maybe I worship Noor a little bit, but that's about all she's ever going to get.
Yeah.
As it should be, though.
Yeah. And as for children teaching children, the experiment in our age now is Cambodia, where all the adults disappeared. And my family's had witness to this, that the children that grew up to be adults didn't behave like adults. You'd think they would, but they were still behaving like children. And to try and help them and get them to understand, to take their responsibility for their lives and their decisions. That it's really hard. It was really hard for the Cambodians to come out of that experience with Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, because there was no decent adults to actually guide them.
That's,
That's a thing.
yeah, that's culturally devastating.
Yeah.
It really was. Yeah. So really, when we look at what we have now, those of us who are awake, or waking up or working on that, that's a blessing if we had even a glimpse of it. That's wonderful.
So, the Sufi way, our Sufi way, not every Sufi way, but our Sufi way, is a way of respecting the individual needs of everyone who comes to learn, and realizing that there is no one size that will fit everyone. If that were the case, then the entire world would be enlightened by now.
Yeah,
And that's,
I'll give an
yes, please,
example.
Jonathan. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. The nine-sided circle hasn't said to me, you should do this kind of meditation. Instead, you've taught the principles behind meditation and described a whole bunch of different ways one can meditate, and then left it up to me to decide which ones I want to pick or leave.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is maddening for some people, but so be it, you know?
Yeah, there are a lot of people who will come to some place and say, just tell me what to do. Give me the process. Give me the system, and I will do the system.
You get emails like that.
Yeah, we do.
It's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there is no system. From the beginning, there has never been a system.
Yes. Sure.
Yeah. So I think initially, to begin with, in KG or maybe first or second standard, we have to have some system or process to begin with at least. And like we are learning a language, ABCD or 1, 2, 3, 4. But then everybody, once they are acquainted with the language, then somebody becomes historian, some become poet, some become mathematician. So it's like in the process, one has to evolve based on one's own experiences, which one is receiving from the teaching, from the life. And I think everything is changing in each moment. So there cannot be any process which runs for the lifetime. Like Heraclitus says that we can't step twice in a river because the river is
Yes.
flowing. So it's like ever changing. So if I am receiving any teaching, then I have to follow that teaching, and then I have to make my own understanding about that teaching, that what part affects in me, in which way. And see, even in the book, the In Search of the Miraculous, it is said that it's a fragment of unknown teaching. So
Yes.
part we are receiving and part we have to evolve by our own practice or our own understanding of the teaching. Otherwise, the book would say that is the final teaching and you have to just follow it.
Right. Yes. Yep. I think you have it right, Jayesh, because as we mentioned, there's some foundational stuff that everybody can share and strive in together. And then there's all the stuff that you really
So
build on your own.
sometimes people want to have a comfort zone that, okay, I have
Yes.
received the teaching and I'm just following the process and I'm doing good. But then they are not exploring
Yes.
or they are not exploring the effects of those process or means practices. And they spend their life. And if somebody is awake and watchful, then one would surely see that if this is making sense, if my life is really changing, if it is not helping, then he would move to some other teaching and keep exploring till he finds some solace in a practical way.
Yeah. You can think of the things that are similar. If I was a master woodworker and I had a wood shop, everybody who came to me would learn the basics of woodworking. But then as I experienced each person who I was working with, I would go, oh, this person, they really work well with carving. So they get to focus on carving. This person over here understands how to finish wood perfectly. So they focus on that. And so within a very short amount of time, no two people within the shop are doing the same thing in the same way. But everybody is working on wood. So, in our particular system, we teach certain things. If you come here, you learn the art of voice. You learn to tell stories. You learn how stories work. You learn how stories affect the human mind. But then it branches out in 10,000 different ways. So, for instance, Cherie, using some of the things that she has learned here, can effectively speak to her clients in a way that allows them to have deeper understanding. Levita may find something completely different to do with the same information that she can develop. Maybe writing, you never know, he said, staring at her pointedly.
She's good.
I'm worshiping.
Actually, when I first saw that, I thought it was a big lit from the inside bong, so.
It's
that
about
kind of
the
party
right
now.
size.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about the right size, but I'm like, no, it's just a big candle.
Big candle. Nancy, what do you think?
Well, one thing I've been thinking about from various angles is the difference between curriculum-based learning and what you might call apprenticeship or even transmission learning.
Yeah.
It's like, I think to some extent people are set up for helplessness by conventional schooling.
I agree.
You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong about that at all.
Much bigger problem than low quality new age stuff.
I think it contributes. I think they're kind of intertwined in the sense that we are taking this kind of consumption model of knowledge and trying to apply it to everything under the sun.
Yeah. And there's kind of the fantasy in conventional schooling of, well, we'll just teach all the right things, and if the student doesn't learn it, it's the student's fault.
Yeah.
And also there's this angle. I was just at a Qigong workshop this weekend, and just how much it's all taught from person to person, and it's absorbed and I think reinvented, and if it isn't, it's lost.
Yep.
Which is kind of an unnerving way to think about human history if you've been raised in conventional society.
Yeah, one of the things that we take as axiomatic is that if the student is not learning, it is not the student's fault. It is the teacher's problem. Because the student doesn't know. So if they don't know, how can they learn? The teacher is supposed to know, and either they can craft the experience for the student so that they can learn, or they can't. And if they can't, they need to send that person to somebody else and stop just wasting their time.
And it's simple as that, right?
Yeah.
It's really just about it's in service to the student, not to your own shit.
That's what we're calling it now.
Yeah.
I was expecting a totally different word.
I mean, there are plenty of words, but I think your own shit is appropriate. Like, we are
Yeah.
not in service to our own shit. Or ideally, we aren't, you know?
Yeah, I just said that to one of my students today.
So,
I said, you know what the thing is. It's just that it's buried under this huge pile of your own shit, and you have to dig that stuff out to find the truth. And that's often the case.
yep. Excuse me.
So, if you want what the work has to offer, which is to be awake in the world and to complete yourself and to move into human adulthood and to begin to develop something profound within yourself, then you need to do what the work requires, which is to give up systems. It may require that you find somebody to coach you and work with you. And that's very dangerous because most of the people out there who are presuming to be coaches don't know the territory. Am I saying that I know the territory? Yes, I do. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Sorry, it's the case. Same with Noor. And I watched her slog through that damn territory for years. But she knows, yeah, she knows the territory now. And, you know, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So either we deliver or we don't. If we don't, we have no business sitting here. If we do, you should give us all your money. Oh, sorry, wrong channel.
And there's the
You
rub.
gotta start rapping now.
Yeah, oh, God.
But you know, time, it's years, and people who are demanding instant answers to their questions and not embodying it, they actually don't embody it. It's all a little intellectual game. It doesn't work. And to be able to work with clients, I mean, one of my first instructions, even before they walk in the door, I said, when you next eat, if you want flexibility in your body, start sitting on the floor. You get that for free. Just sit on the floor. Every time you eat and drink, just sit on the floor. I don't care how you do it. As many cushions as you like, sit on the floor. And so when I get to see them and I ask, did you manage to eat a meal sitting on the floor? Oh, and then I hear the whole list of excuses. And that's work. You'll get a whole list of excuses of why something didn't happen. But sometimes the simple instruction of being aware of your breath is the hardest thing to do sometimes. And we forget that this takes years of practice to get a little bit of ease. I'm not saying there will be a lot of ease. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. Time. The time is different for every person. You know, don't ask me when I get the front split. Not if you're not sitting on the floor. You know, don't even ask that question. You're not doing the work. The end.
The end. I mean, that's part of why there is a need for patience, both on the part of the student and on the part of the teacher. You have to meet through that generosity of effort and time.
Yes, and Cherie brings up something that is profoundly important. Doing the work takes time and dedication and intention. Most people don't do the work. Why should you go and do the work when you can go down to your local temple of Maya and leave an offering and be given good dreams for the rest of your life? Ask yourself that. Most of what you get, and here's my take on this, is that a lot of these teachers who are giving you the various processes and everything, they are the priests and priestesses of Maya. They are there to serve as intermediaries between her and you. And if you go there, what you get offered is really wonderful dreams. And there's nothing wrong with that. I like the occasional good dream. Of course, my good dreams are quite weird. My latest good dream was dreaming about falling objects and calculating the parabola of the object relative to the spin of the earth if you drop something straight down. To me, that was a great dream. I woke up feeling really good. I may be the only person in the world who felt that way about that dream, but so you can worship at the temple of Maya. Y'all who know who I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
If not, go back and watch my video on dating Maya.
Yes, the dating Maya video.
Yeah, that was a pretty popular one.
Excuse me, I want to follow up on what Sherry was saying, because
Yeah.
there's no way to curse conventional schooling enough. And one of the things that it deserves to be cursed for is that it actually rewards you for knowing things rather than learning things.
Amen to that.
And so the necessary patience isn't taught.
Yeah. Yeah, Gurdjieff made a major differentiation in his work between knowledge and understanding. He said knowledge is just gathering facts, learning facts or learning opinions. Understanding is to be able to use those in the real world. And I found this with a lot of math students who could regurgitate equations and give answers to various questions of addition and subtraction and square roots and all of that. But if you brought them out into a field and said, level this field for me, even though they had all of the math to do it, they could not make it practical.
For those of us who aren't math nerds, what does that mean? Making it practical. How would you describe that?
Okay, so leveling the field is a practical thing. I need to put a building on this field and I need for the building to be level, so I need for the ground underneath the building to be level.
Yeah.
So I have to be able to figure out what is level on this. The Egyptians had a very interesting way of doing it. They would drill holes in the stone and they would put sticks in the holes. And then they would build up a thing around it, and they would fill the thing with water and mark on the sticks where level was, because the water was level no matter what.
Right, yeah.
And so when they had that, they could fill it up to the exact top of those sticks, and they would have a completely level foundation. If you know the math, you can calculate how high a tree is, which is important if you want that tree to fall down. Because if it's taller than you think and it falls down, it crashes on your roof. So little things like that is the difference between knowledge and understanding. Anybody can know how to do a quadratic equation, which is an equation about an equation. But using that in the real world is a whole different thing.
That's where creativity comes into play.
Yeah.
Not to mention with the internet on everybody's phones, you can find out any fact that you need to know. If somebody says to you, you know, what's the name of the actor, whatever, you can just look it up. But if you don't know how to apply the knowledge, because quite frankly, if I had to level a field digging with those little stick things, I wouldn't even have thought of all the rest of that math because I don't know how to do that, apply it, you know? But being able to apply the knowledge versus being able to find the knowledge, it's a waste of time to memorize most things that they give you in school to memorize.
Yeah. You know, I think back to the things that I had to memorize in school. I can't think of a single one of them right now.
Times tables.
I got the measles halfway through times tables, and so I have to think about times tables, which is terrible because, you know, you need to know your multiplication.
Well, you were a grown-up when Schoolhouse Rock came on, but people my age are literally running through the song in their head when they have to go, 11 times 11 is what? And they just run through the song.
So Nancy mentions that Mathematics is a book about applying math. Thinking about
Semantics.
math semantics. That makes sense. Yeah, Math Semantics is a book about applying math and thinking about math in a way that makes sense. Good.
Yeah.
Look that up.
Yeah, this guy came up with a questionnaire for people to work in his, I think something like computer programs for airlines business. And he had to find people who could actually think about the equations they were using. And so we came up with about 20 or 30 questions. And then he explained the sorts of answers people gave and what made sense and what didn't.
That sounds like a cool book.
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
something to be
So-
checked out.
Have we learned anything tonight?
Systems are the enemy. They're the enemy of individualistic training.
Not the enemy, because we have no desire to fight with it. I am perfectly fine, to tell you the truth, with all of the people who go to all of these teachers who promise to heal them from their traumas over and over again for the next 20 years, because it keeps them out of my hair.
Meanwhile, I'm probably a little bit more surly and annoyed about it, but you know, I still have some mellowing out to do, and it's just one of those things where
Yeah.
we.
Oh,
No,
didn't
I
fall into
found the
hands of
path
people
that
like
was.
that.
Yeah.
What's that, Levita?
No, I just said I'm just glad I didn't fall into the hands of people like that because
Yeah.
that I got a fair amount of trauma and I'm trying to resolve it. And when I'm finished with it, I want to be finished with it. I don't want to be visiting it like every year like it's a Thanksgiving thing.
Oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
with you. I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, this is why this is my path and not something else.
Well, that's all I got to say on this.
Yeah, I'm
We'll
feeling pretty
see.
good about it too.
Yeah,
and-
I'm excited to see how many people we piss off with this.
But happy to continue the dialogue in the comments if need be, of course.
Yeah.
Or on the Facebook forum. You
Yeah.
can find us there. Does anybody have any last thoughts they'd like to share? Jonathan, Jayesh? Okay, cool. All right.
Good. I have switched to Brady Bunch mode so we can all wave goodbye.
Yes,
And
great to
we'll
see
see
all of you.
next week.
Thanks for joining us, and we will see you again soon.